Hello, YouTubers. Thought I'd bring you a special edition of the Level-Headed News with some more election coverage, as I have all kinds of articles stacking up here. But I would like to start out by saying congratulations to the Patriots in Oregon for their win today. In case the viewers have not heard, the charges were dropped against the defendants in Oregon on the Malheur Refuge standoff. So we won this battle. Next battle is in Nevada. While we watch the government waste more of our taxpayer dollars on something that they never should have started in the first place. We'll go right on into this election news here. The first article is off of bizpackreview.com. And it says, Texas official says he's seeing record surge of new voters and they're not turning out for Hillary. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller appeared on Fox News Wednesday and told FNC anchor Shannon Bream that the Lone Star State is witnessing record-breaking early voting. He told her that many of them are first-time voters and people who haven't voted in a long time, and they all appear to be placing their bets on Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. A Twitter user with the handle Deplorable Trump Cat recorded and posted the exchange, and there's a video in this if you'd like to take a look at it. Of course, all these URLs are listed in the description of this video, so you can take a look at them at your leisure and pull up the videos and click on any links or anything that you would like to click on. Takes you to more information. And the article goes on and says, we have a record number of people registered to vote in Texas. We're having record turnouts. The first day, the second day of voting, he told Bream, and it's not Bernie Sanders supporters coming out to support Hillary. It's not Barack Obama supporters coming out to support Hillary. It's a new surge of Trump voters, many who have never registered to vote, many who have not voted in 8 or 10 elections, so they're not reported in the polls. Bream observed that Miller's report isn't supported by poll numbers and asked him to explain. I know for a fact that the polls are off because they oversample Democrats by 8, sometimes up to 16% oversampling Democrats, he explained. They're oversampling women by 5 to 8%, so the Republican vote is underreported. Plus, there's no way to sample this extra 20 to 25% of new voters that are Trump voters. They're not Republican, they're not Democrats, they're pragmatists. They're tired of the status quo and they want change. Earlier into the interview, Miller said what may account for the sudden surge of people voting for Trump, Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton doesn't pass the Texas smell test. Could this be the start of something big? One person thought so, and they tweeted, say it with me, landslide. So there you have that article. The next article that I have for you is off of conservativetribune.com, and it says breaking. Try this again. Breaking. Clinton fixer reveals sick smear Hillary ordered against Monica. And this one reads like this. The man whom Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton and her husband, ex-president Bill Clinton, hired to cover up some of their dirtiest schemes has come forward to explain some of the worst secrets about the couple. Novelist Jeff Rovin appears on Fox News' Hannity show and explains how he was the fixer for many of the Clinton escapades. Rovin confirmed what many people have suspected, that Hillary Clinton ran the show and that she was the one who ordered all the fixing. Rovin said he was instructed by Hillary Clinton to smear Monica Lewinsky by leaking false stories about her to his contacts. That action left Rovin feeling particularly guilty. He told host Sean Hannity that he finally got to apologize to Lewinsky in person after a coincidence made them neighbors. Rovin also said that Hillary Clinton had an affair with longtime ally and lawyer Vince Foster that lasted for years. In what police said was suicide, but speculation has always been that he was murdered. Part of Rovin's fixer responsibilities included helping scrub Foster's office after his death. He also said he was ordered to distract the media while Team Clinton rummaged through Foster's office. Foster also said he hired Jerry Parks, an Arkansas investor, to spy on Bill because Hillary was worried about Bill's exploits with so many sluts and how that could hurt their political careers. 2 months after Foster was found dead, Parks was found shot 9 times at a stoplight in his SUV in Little Rock, Arkansas. Rovin said Parks had to die because he knew everything. Rovin also said he was told to keep stories quiet in one of 2 ways: by trading access to the Clintons for positive interviews or by paying the reporters. Rovin also told Hannity that the endless attention to the alleged indiscretions of GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump was what forced him to go public now. Nothing I have heard comes close to the sexual and moral corruption of the Clintons, many of which have yet to be revealed, he said. Somehow, while all this shocking and sick, none of it's surprising. So there you have that one, and there is video in that URL as well. And this one is off of BizPack Review. Says, I'm pissed. Hannity demands answers from purist never-Trumpers in profane-laced rant. Regardless of the polls, this election is far from over. However, as Fox News host Sean Hannity fully understands, we're going to need all hands on deck to have a chance at pulling it off. Enter the so-called conservative #NeverTrump crowd. The sanctimonious, holier-than-thou purist would rather see Hillary Clinton occupy the White House than someone they deem unworthy because of his personal shortcomings. It must be nice living in those ivory towers, far from the apocalyptic ramifications they so blithely seek to impose on the rest of us. On his Wednesday radio show, Hannity was especially critical of these folks, so much so that he had to dump himself to get calmed down. All this garbage from you never-Trump jerks out there, I've had it, Hannity said. By the way, that's more unfinished business. November 9th, I have a lot to say about all of you. Referring to Evan McMillan, the Goldman Sachs globalist shill, who's certainly trying to do his part to hand the election to Hillary by denying Trump the traditional red state of Utah, the Fox News host asked, who's this idiot that's running third party that's killing Trump out in Utah? Who put him up? What was it? The Bush people? The Romney people? What a disaster that would be for this country, Hannity rightly said, should McMillan succeed in his goal of getting Hillary elected. Hannity got so aggressive that his own dump button, after saying he agrees that Trump isn't freaking perfect. After the delay, he could be heard yelling, I'm pissed. Indeed, the American people should be pissed if these people actually managed to play a role in potential Trump defeat, so much so that any one of them should have a hard time getting elected dog catcher. And there's audio in this if you want to play audio and listen to that part of it. The next one that I have for you is off of BizPack Review. It says, liberal blog takes heartless jab at Mike Pence's sad personal news, earns heavy bipartisan backlash. Imagine a media comment so heartless that it earns bipartisan backlash for its mockery. Republican vice presidential candidate Mike Pence shared sad news on Twitter Wednesday about his dog, Maverick. And the tweet reads, heavy hearts today. Our beagle of 13 years passed away quietly last night. Rest in peace, Maverick. We will miss you. And the article says, while many offered condolences and sympathy, the online blog Jezebel came up with a tasteless reaction that says, an October surprise for Mike Pence's dog, death. Twitter users were appalled and let the blog published by Gawker Media know it was not cool, regardless of your ideology and political party affiliation, to mock the death of a family pet. One says, this is tasteless and cruel. You should delete and issue a genuine apology. Another one says, I'm no Mike Pence fan, but this is weird and crude headline. Another one says, stop it. Another one says, not cool. Another one says, that's not nice and I'm no fan of his. Another one says, this title is just absurdly tasteless and mean-spirited. Come on, people. The online article featured the same headline but offered a small note of sympathy within. The slot sends out our thoughts and prayers to Maverick and family during this sad time, it read. But on Twitter, the outrage crossed party lines and united social media users in their disgust. And there, we get back to Twitter feeds. It says it's completely classless. This proves there is media bias, and sometimes it can manifest itself in disgusting ways. Another one says, okay, headline's pretty horrific. Another one says, absolutely appalling. Another one says, please mark a date 10 years from now on the calendar and look back at how awful you were in 2016. Another one says, I'm not at all a fan of Pence's politics, but this headline is messed up. Has the writer ever lost a pet? Awful and cruel headline. Another one says, wow, hateful. Another one says, as a New York liberal, I'd like to state for the record that this headline is disgusting and she should apologize. Another one says, as a Trumpster, I would even celebrate the death of Hillary's goldfish. And, or I'm sorry, wouldn't. Try that again. And as a Trumpster, I wouldn't even celebrate the death of Hillary's goldfish. Another one says, you're an embarrassing publication overall, but this is cruel. And another one says, what a reprehensible thing to do. And I mean, these go on and on, so you can read up on those at your leisure if you want to, but Lord have mercy. I mean, heartless people, man, I don't care who you are. If your pet passes away, it's a sad thing. Next one we have is off of Brigaded, and I found this interesting. It's I'm not sure how he pronounces his name, and I know I'm good at butchering names, so you'll have to pardon me, but Shkreli, it says, if Trump wins, I will release entire unreleased music collection. Martin Shkreli, founder and former CEO of Turing, announced via Twitter last night that his entire unreleased music collection, including unheard Nirvana, Beatles, and of course Wu-Tang, comes out for free. While it isn't the first time a celebrity has offered something for their preferred candidate winning a race, this small offering is definitely going to have some sort of impact on the presidential race this year. I urge you to retweet the Twitter post by clicking this tweet. And the tweet says, if Trump wins, my entire unreleased music collection, including unheard Nirvana, Beatles, and of course Wu-Tang, comes out for free. Instantly, it has convinced some to vote that otherwise wouldn't have. You can see one of the popular replies here, and it says, Trump wins, my entire, or I'm sorry, we read that one, okay, and the answer to it is, why you gotta make me vote. And it says, Regated is unsure how much Nirvana and Beatles music that has never been heard before that Martin Shkreli owns. However, he paid $2 million for a Wu-Tang Clan album that only had one copy sold, according to Bloomberg. Initially, the Klan wanted wanted to forbid the buyer from publicly releasing the album for 88 years, but over time decided to grant the buyer total freedom as long as the album wasn't sold commercially. That meant the owner couldn't listen to the record in a soundproof room. Or, I'm sorry, he could. Wow. I don't know what's wrong with my eyes tonight. Says that meant the owner could listen to the record in a soundproof room, drive a pickup truck over it, or release it for free on the internet. If the owner desired, he could be the only one who ever heard it. In an era where people are happy to stream music rather than actually possess it, once upon a time, in Shallow offered a chance to own something truly unique. Having participated in bidding wars for companies and drugs, Shkreli says he had a feeling from the start that he'd made the highest offer for Shallow. As it turned out, he was right. Shkreli won't say how much he paid, but someone familiar with the deal says that the Wu-Tang Clan sold him the album for $2 million. Has this convinced you to change who you're voting for? Let us know in the comment section below. So there you have that. Oh, man. That beats Madonna's offer for what she was aiming to give away for voting for Hillary, don't it? Oh my. Okay, the next one is off of viralliberty.com, and it says Hillary Clinton's e-voting scam uncovered. There's how she's rigging, or here's how she's rigging the election. It says this is absolutely disgusting. This alone should send Hillary to jail, and wasn't even hard to find once people started looking. Dominion Voting is based in Toronto, Canada, and they supply voting machines to 22 states in the United States. Says they have also donated to the Clinton Foundation, and there is information in this. I'm not sure what this is off of. It doesn't say. But it's headquarters Toronto, Ontario. Premier Solutions is the subsidiary. Website is dominionvoting.com. And it says Dominion Voting System Corporation is a Canadian company that sells electronic voting hardware, including voting machines and tabulators. As of August 2010, Dominion voting machines are used in 600 jurisdictions in 22 states of the United States, and 80,000 Dominion ImageCast precinct optical scan tabulators are in use in other countries. And then off of ClintonFoundation.org says Delian Project Dominion Voting. It comes as no surprise that Dominion would hope few in the public actually notice their sudden acquisition of e-voting assets from some 50% of the U.S. voting market. That's right, this fall, 50% of the voting machines will be products of Dominion Voting System. My friends and I are wondering why a company that supplies 50% of the voting machines to America donates money to the Clinton Foundation. Coincidence? I think not. This is their homepage on their website, but when doing more research on their involvement, there was a complete dead end. When clicking on the link that is supporting this information, the link is inactive and doesn't go anywhere. Is this someone covering their tracks? This is Hillary trying to avoid another scandal. Part that is that Dominion Voting brags on its homepage that together with our customers, we strive to change elections for the better. More like change elections for Hillary Clinton. There are too many suspect things surrounding Dominion Voting. We need to recall of all the voting machines that they have sold to the U.S. and replace them with ones that aren't connected to either candidate. Donald Trump doesn't have any voting machine company donating money to him. This is absolutely horrendous, and we need to help make something happen. We need to ask our representatives to act now and remove these devices. Donald Trump needs our help, and it's up to us people to show up and vote for him and stop Hillary's horrific schemes to try and rig this election. Hillary Clinton doesn't know how to fight fair and can only try to cheat her way into the White House. This can't be allowed to happen. We have to stop this now and for good before it's too late. So there you have that article. The next one we have here is off of thecommonsenseshow.com. False flag alert. Media plotting with Clinton's operatives to gun down Democrats and blame it on Trump. Mike Adams and I strongly feel that we have been set up to take the blame for any violent backlash to the coming election results if Hillary Clinton is able to steal the election. In response, and knowing how the Clinton Democrat think and behave, Mike produced the following article. False flag alert. Media plotting with Clinton operatives to gun down Democrats and blame it on Trump. As Dave Hodges has correctly pointed out in this article, both the New York Times and Washington Post have been interviewing pro-Trump supporters who are warning readers about the possibility of an armed citizens' revolt if Hillary Clinton steals the White House. I was interviewed last week by a Washington Post reporter whom I told flat out that your newspaper has zero credibility and that whatever I gave them on the record would likely be twisted and selectively edited to fit their desired narrative. That's why I recorded my entire interview with their reporter, who turned out to be rather polite and genuinely concerned about one of my predictions. To his credit, if he actually writes and publishes an honest story rather than a propaganda piece, I will make note of it. Why did he call me in the first place? My widely shared article predicting leftist bombings of government buildings was published several days before the GOP headquarters in North Carolina was firebombed by violent leftists. In my original story entitled Voters Warned, You've Already Lost America, this election is about taking it back in the last nonviolent way possible. I wrote, as all this is going down, you should fully expect violent extremist leftists to be setting bombs all over the place, with funding for bombs coming from George Soros, the key funding source of domestic terrorism in America. Just a few days later, the bombings began in North Carolina, confirming one of my predictions and possibly giving my article the credibility that might cause mainstream media reporters to be concerned about what else I've been predicting. Note to reporters, yes, you should read my predictions if you really want to know U.S. history before it happens. Those additional predictions, by the way, include one possible scenario where armed Americans march on Washington and occupy the White House, resulting in the kind of bloodshed and violence we all hope can be avoided in any civilized nation. My article called on Americans to avoid this scenario by taking back their country at the ballot box, thus reestablishing the balance of power at the ballot box. Yet, ironically, it is mainstream media that is playing a monumental role in making sure American elections are no longer open, free, and fair. The media radically one-sided promotion of Hillary Clinton, coupled with extremely biased attacks on Donald Trump, only confirmed to tens of millions of Americans that the system is entirely rigged against them. Had the media engaged in something resembling balanced coverage of candidates, I doubt there would be much of the sense of anger, frustration, and incredulity that now reflected across much of the voting population. The leftist media, in other words, is at least partly to blame for the extreme political polarization now being witnessed across America. And that's directly because the media has now chosen sides, and the side they've chosen is the side that despises almost everything America has founded on. Gunning down Democrats to blame Trump, or try that again, gunning down Democrats to blame Trump supporters. Analysis. It's now clear that the same leftist media, which has systematically rigged everything, staged debate questions, staged polls, rehearsed audience comments at CNN, deep collusion with the Clinton campaign, total censorship of WikiLeaks emails, etc., is colluding with Clinton-linked terror operatives who are going to commit acts of mass violence that will be blamed on Trump supporters. It's a repeat of the exact same Trump rally violence that's been caught on video by Project Veritas, where Democrat operatives openly admit they take money from the Clinton campaign to stage and carry out acts of extreme violence so they can be blamed on Trump. Now I fear they are taking that false flag operation to a whole new level. It's now obvious to me, after talking with the Washington Post reporter, that leftist operatives are going to pretend to be Trump supporters and then open fire on crowds of Clinton supporters using automatic weapons. Leftist propaganda rags like New York Times, Boston Globe, Washington Post are readying their articles to blame Trump supporters, such as myself, Dave Hodges, and Alex Jones, declaring us guilty of inflammatory rhetoric anytime we discuss the proper role of the Second Amendment in defending democracy against criminal government regimes. This is all being orchestrated in advance, scripted like everything else coming out of the fake leftist media. It may even involve a staged false flag attack at an actual Clinton rally where CNN cameras will be sure to cover the bloody mayhem. The anti-Trump narrative will be unleashed within minutes, consisting of a barrage of huge stories and the universal condemnation of Donald Trump, who will be accused of signaling his supporters to carry out the act that was actually carried out by paid terrorists working for the Democrats. Don't forget, these are the same leftist conspiracy riggers who staged the crisis actors of Sandy Hook, where oddly enough, one of the SWAT team snipers was caught on camera clumsily carrying a sniper rifle not long after he also played the role of a sobbing parent who lost a child in a mass shooting. The actor's name is David Wheeler, and you can see all of the faked footage in this video, and the video is in this article for you to take a look at. If they can fake certain elements of Sandy Hook, they can easily fake mass shooting of Hillary Clinton supporters. I'm not saying the entire Sandy Hook scenario was faked, but it's clear that many elements of it were staged by crisis actors. Remember, ABC, NBC, CNN, NYT, MSNBC, Washington Post, LA Times, and all the other mainstream media propaganda hubs received their editorial marching orders each day from a common source. Every day, they're told exactly what to write, what to avoid covering, and even exactly what words to use. And they give examples in some video here if you want to take a look at those. It says, on command, the entire state-run media will spontaneously broadcast the exact same story, citing all the same facts by using the exact same words. It doesn't take a genius to realize it's all scripted in advance. The so-called media is nothing more than state propaganda. Now more than ever, it's obvious to any person who isn't a mind-numb zombie. All out panic inside the Clinton campaign. She's about to lose. They must change the narrative. Now there's a real kicker in all this. Inside the Clinton campaign, they know she's about to lose the popular vote. Only in rigged polls is she really ahead. In the minds of everyday voters, Donald Trump is their preferred choice by a long shot, which is exactly why his rallies are so well attended by thousands of enthusiastic supporters. Because Clinton is still behind in the real world, the same criminal-minded leftist operatives who staged the violence at Trump rallies are now poised to carry out a mass shooting that can be blamed on Trump supporters. That's why the Washington Post and New York Times are pulling together their twisted, distorted stories right now. They're colluding with Clinton campaign terrorists to make sure the timing on all this is perfectly coordinated. If the false flag scenario is involved, it's all going to play out in the next 2 weeks. I've known for a long time that the establishment was planning a massive false flag attack on innocent Americans in order to change the course of this election. And now, with voting day drawing near, it's a desperate situation for the Democrats and the political establishment. To win the election, they must radically change the narrative. And the U.S. history has proven that the only way they can achieve such an outcome is for leftists to carry out a massive false flag attack that spills a huge amount of blood into the streets of America. All that's required for them to carry out such acts of terrorism on U.S. soil is for the Democrats to pay crazy people to open fire on Hillary supporting crowds or plant a bomb in such a crowd. Boston Marathon, Sandy Hook, Twin Towers, Oklahoma City. What do all these have in common? Orchestration by the establishment and collusion with the media, followed by a crisis actor sobbing on CNN. It's also pathetically predictable. Hunger Games, anyone? How the establishment despises democracy and will use violence to stay in power. Right now, they're desperate to change the narrative and paint Donald Trump as terrorist or murderer. Michael Moore has already launched into the labeling of Trump supporters as terrorists, setting the stage for the left's deadly false flag attack, followed by the leftist media narrative to blame Trump. Remember, Democrats despise democracy. They don't trust voters to keep them in office, which is why they routinely resort to massive voter fraud to win elections. They don't want open and free election coverage by the media, which is why they plant thousands of biased media stories to make sure their nominee gets portrayed as an angel while their opponent is made to look like a turd. Democrats don't trust democracy either, which is why they oppose voter ID laws or the removal of dead people from voter rolls. In truth, the only way Democrats ever get elected is by cheating, lying, or staging stealing elections. They usually use these tactics. Don't grab headlines because they're all secretly carried out in the dark. Today, with the stakes so high in the Trump versus Clinton election, left-wing terrorists coordinated by the Clintons at the top are willing to do anything to seize power. This includes murdering a few hundred or a few thousand of their own supporters if necessary to capture it all on camera and blame Donald Trump. Also remember, James Comey of the FBI is a Clinton operative too, meaning the FBI may be in on this false flag operation from the get-go. By the way, mid-level FBI agents are furious that Comey and at Comey and largely agree he should be indicted for criminal collusion. By and large, the FBI isn't staffed by evil people. Most of the agents there are decent professionals, and they do catch a lot of genuine bad guys, but at its highest level, the FBI is just corrupt as the DOJ. Adolf Hitler used the same tactics, of course, with the Reichstag firebombing, which has been widely accepted to be a false flag operation planned and carried out by the Nazis to blame their political enemies. From the Telegraph, it says, after poring over 50,000 pages of hitherto examined documents from former East German and Soviet archives for leading German historians have now concluded that fire was a Nazi plot. Marnus van der Lubbe, age 24, a pro-communist Dutch laborer, was beheaded by the Nazis after admitting that he started the blaze alone to encourage a workers' uprising. Have no illusions. Democrats will mass murder their own supporters to blame it on Trump and gun owners. It's important that you understand just how far leftists will go to maintain political power. These are people who are at every level criminal masterminds who exist in a terrorist mindset every single day. They can't wait to bomb buildings, execute police officers on the street, murder their political opponents, or carry out false flag operations that achieve their political goals through mass bloodshed. Don't think for a minute they would not murder hundreds or thousands of their own supporters in order to defeat Donald Trump, or call for a nationwide ban on firearms in the hands of citizens. This is precisely the kind of violence they can't wait to unleash upon a society they hate in the first place. Remember, leftists hate America. They hate the Constitution. They hate capitalism. They hate fetuses. They especially hate the Second Amendment. In their minds, the more death, chaos, bloodshed they can cause and blame on their political opponent, the better. They celebrate death of Anton Scalia in the same way they would right now celebrate the murder of Trump himself if they could manage to kill him. Leftists feed off death and suffering. It's how they stay in power. It's why they never want low-income people to achieve economic self-reliance. In contrast, law-abiding gun owners abhor senseless violence. Should armed American citizens ever decide to march on Washington to overthrow a corrupt, criminal, totalitarian regime, it would only be as very last resort after trying every other means for a peaceful solution. Gun owners do not revel in the chance to wield such weapons against fellow human beings. They shudder at every thought. They see the Second Amendment not as a license to commit mayhem, but as a sacred responsibility to defend democracy from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Rest assured that if any person opens fire on a crowd in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a Clinton operative carrying out a false flag attack, not a conservative gun owner who supports Trump. By the way, the Washington Post reporter who interviewed me seemed to be completely unaware that totalitarian leftist regimes have, throughout history, taken part in mass genocide against their own citizens. He seemed to react in disbelief that I could even ponder such a concept. It seemed that knowledge of the world history is not a requirement for being a political writer at the Washington Post. That's a shame, because knowledge of history would make it apparent to anyone just how corrupt and dangerous the Obama-Clinton regime has become for America. The Clintons are nothing new. They're the same old corruption, deception, and psychopathy, just repackaged in a modern form. The real danger to America is found squarely on the twisted minds of Clinton supporters. For the record, and yes, reporters may feel free to quote me on this word for word, there is no danger to the American public from gun-owning, Trump-supporting American patriots. Even if they all decided to march on Washington as a last resort to defend democracy, they would not be there to harm people, but rather to liberate them. Constitutional citizens are, by definition, law-abiding Americans. Most of us, including myself, have passed numerous FBI background checks and have been fingerprinted many times in order to carry concealed handgun license. For my history, I have absolutely no criminal record whatsoever, have never ever been arrested or charged with any crime, ever. I am responsible owner of high-powered, long-range tactical firearms and have a long history of urging peaceful, nonviolent outcomes wherever possible. I would never call for violence nor carry out violence against another human being except in the most dire self-defense circumstances, such as if my life or safety were an imminent threat and I felt I had no other choice but to fight or die. Yes, I also realize, as do many millions of others, that there is a point in human history where a mass genocide being carried out by governments against their own people must be halted by all means necessary in order to save lives. In this, I'm referring to the Third Reich, Pol Pot, the Cultural Revolution, the tribal machete killings in various African nations, the genocidal murder of Native Americans, and so on. In each of these historical cases, there was a point where the citizens had the moral right to quite literally kill their oppressors as an act of self-defense and self-preservation. If you cannot understand this, you're not qualified to vote, quite frankly. It is a fundamental and oft repeated phenomenon of human history. This does not mean to imply that we are at the same point in America, because we're not yet. But should Hillary Clinton seize the White House, America could very rapidly descend into totalitarian nightmare, where the only remaining option to defend democracy and protect the lives of the people is to halt the corrupt, lawless regime using whatever means of resistance the population may have remaining. The goal in such an action would be the restoration of democracy, the return of free and open elections, the indictment and prosecution of American traitors, and calling for new elections to restore a representative democracy. None of us would tolerate a military dictatorship staying in power, even if such a structure were necessary to overthrow a lawless regime caught committing crimes against humanity. The vast majority of gun owners across America agree that the decentralization of power is the best protection against tyranny. Thus, even if a citizens' revolt were to manage to overthrow some future tyrant in Washington, it would only be with the intention of restoring democracy as quickly as possible. Nobody wants power centralized in the hands of a few, regardless of the political party in power. Bush was, in many ways, just as corrupt and criminal as Obama or Clinton, and it's astonishing how today's loudmouth Democrats have conveniently forgotten the WikiLeaks disclosures on Bush, isn't it? Armed citizens, in other words, do not seek power. They seek, on contrary, to decentralize power and make sure the government answers to the people and not the other way around. Thus, any mainstream media reporter concerned what might happen if all this gets out of hand and things descend into open armed revolt should take some comfort in the simple fact that nobody is out to harm you. If anything, they hope to free your mind from political enslavement under which you've been suffering. You are not the enemy. You are, in essence, a captive of the enemy, a cognitive prisoner of war, even without your knowledge that you have been captured and turned to the dark side. I'm happy to intelligently discuss these points with any reporter who genuinely wants to understand events that are unfolding today. Sadly, most of you are nothing but corporate prostitutes who regurgitated scripture lies or scripted lies for a corrupt state. Most of you are incredibly naive, poorly educated about reality, have no knowledge of history, are ridiculously ignorant of human psychology, have no understanding of political power, have no freedom to print the truth anyway. Thus, you are really not worth my time to try to educate. If you collect a paycheck from the globalist publisher, you are nothing more than a journo slave, living each day lying to yourself about your own importance. In decade or less, you'll be replaced by AI and find yourself destitute and cast aside by the very system you have been foolishly working to protect. And there is a link you can click on to learn more about this if you care to follow that. But there's that article for you. The next one I have is off of regated.com, and it says, George Soros voting machine petition hits 100,000 signatures. Petition to remove voting machines linked to George Soros hits 100,000 signatures. A WhiteHouse.gov petition created just 5 days ago has already broke 100,000 signatures. In order to garnish a response, a petition needs 100,000 signatures in 30 days. Fortunately, Congress will now have to respond to the George Soros conflict of interest. Unfortunately, the White House has no obligation to address the George Soros-linked voting machines before Election Day. The success of George Soros' voting machine petition can be heavily attributed to the Donald. For those out of the loop, the Donald community of Trump supporters who are fully committed to meeting Donald Trump or memeing Donald Trump into the White House. Furthermore, in the full Donald fashion, the Donald stayed under the budget ahead of schedule. No breaks, folks. And the link to that is here in this article if you want to go to that and take a look at that site. It says, in order to really pressure Congress to enact on the George Soros voting machine petition, an influx of signatures could expedite the process. Moreover, I'm asking everyone reading to please share this petition with all of their friends. Above all, if you respect the democratic process, George Soros potentially meddling in our election is a direct threat to the integrity of our presidential election. We're all well aware of the consequences that a threat such as this could pose on our sacred voting tradition. With an election as important as the 2016 presidential election, foreign entities have no business influencing the outcome. Let's let Congress know that we want a fair election. And there's information in this where you can go to sign that petition. So I strongly suggest you pull that one up and take a look at that, and you feel like you want to sign it, sign it. The next one we have, or the last one that I have for you in this episode, is called, or it's off of proamericannews.com, and it says, "Lock her up. Hillary's big pharma price fixing scheme exposed. This could kill millions." One of Hillary Clinton's biggest platforms is the fight on pharmaceutical companies, claiming that they charge American people too much simply because they can. She is fighting for cheaper drug costs, but is she really? Does she have America's best interest at heart? This WikiLeaks released email proves that while Hillary is looking to have cheaper drugs in other countries like Africa and the Middle East, she's not doing it for America. In fact, she's hoping for cheaper drug prices don't bleed over into our country, so we're the ones forced to pay the higher prices. And it has a copy of this in this article if you want to read that. It says either way, insurance companies have to pay for these drugs, and they would rather have the American people dish out the money than do it themselves. This is yet another example of the medical establishment putting their needs of U.S. citizens last. Another example is the new lawsuit passed in California, which makes it possible for doctor-assisted suicide. This has caused insurance companies to refuse to pay for expensive life-saving procedures and treatments, opting instead for the death-bringing pills for terminal patients. They'd rather condemn sick individuals to death because it's cheaper for them as companies. Some Americans depend on pills to survive their day-to-day lives, and Hillary wants to keep Americans paying top dollar while foreigners get cheap prices. Cheaper drugs should not just be given to people in other countries. We have enough people struggling with prices of drugs and that they just need to survive. Hillary may harp that she is against the pharmaceutical companies, but many have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to her election campaign. They have given her a whopping $336,416 so far. She proclaims these companies are her enemy. These donations don't even include the money corporations have spent lobbying in Congress, such as Pfizer, a huge pharma company that spent more than $10 million on lobbying efforts in 2015. The health industry overall, including health professionals, hospitals, HMOs, and pharmaceutical companies, donated over $9.5 million in 2016 presidential candidates, making it the third largest donating industry. Clinton is the top beneficiary from this group, receiving more than $3.5 million in donations. America is the leading country in medical research, bashing the companies that research and produce the world's most groundbreaking medicines might give Clinton's a bump in the polls, but her rhetoric has dangerous consequences. Clinton's attacks on drug manufacturers have promoted a sell-off of biotech stocks multiple times over the past year. If companies can't raise funding from investors, they'll have to limit new research projects. That means fewer drugs down the road. This political expediency is short-sighted and dangerous. If Clinton reaches the White House and actually implements price controls, it's a fact that Americans will lose out on life-saving drugs. Price controls in other countries have stopped research spending by up to $8 billion each year, which is the value of 3 or 4 new potentially groundbreaking drugs. So there's the information on her and Big Pharma. And that concludes this episode of the special edition with Level-Headed News. And I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll see you tomorrow with the current events.